everybody. My name is Drew, and I am a psychotherapist here in New York City. And this is 4x4. 4 things every Enneagram 4 needs to know on a specific topic, given by a 4. I am one of you. I suffer as well. It's been a lifetime of suffering. And it's also been a lifetime of looking for those people in life who could help me understand myself. Now, luckily, I had one very early on. My brother is 8 years older than me. We didn't know this till more recently, that he is a 4 also. And so there was an understanding early on that we had something that was simpatico. We had this connection where he understood a lot about me without me having to explain it. So if we can get so lucky that we find another 4 early on in our lives, great. We often don't get that though. But what we need when we are looking for mentors and collaborators is the right friction, the optimal frustration. Who will push us back in the right way? Who will guide us in the right way? Who will let us see our blind spots, our shadow side? And in our work, especially, those people who will help us compromise only in the right moments, not compromise to make things the right moments. Our motives are never unidimensional. They're never totally in line and pure, and that's okay. But we need people to just cut off the fat that needs to be cut off. You don't cut off every piece of fat when you're eating a steak. Some of it can just remain, and it has a little tastiness to it. And that's the same with us. We don't have to cut away everything, because our flaws, as the Enneagram teaches us, can actually be utilized to our benefit. So as 4s, we have that loud inner critic. We try to avoid mistakes, but we are often looking for the unobtainable, the unachievable, these lofty goals that are extreme at times. And so that loud inner critic gets louder when we don't reach them. And we need those folks to just be by our side, to support us, or to collaborate with us. I think we are pioneers as 4s. We blaze the path. And so we need to be really deliberate about getting the characters in our life that are going to help us do that. Rainer Marie Rilke said, "Without doubt, there exists somewhere for each person a teacher. And for each person who feels himself a teacher, there is surely somewhere a pupil." So what's number 1 in this 4-part piece? Deference to authorities. Just someone to revere, someone to respect. And I think when Rilke's using those words, he's saying, there's somebody out there. Now, as 4s, we are known for having a deference for authority figures. It does not mean that we just walk into a room and whoever's the authority figure we're going to bow down to. That is not the case. I know if you're like me, you are suspicious of leadership at certain level. And also, you will test them, even if it's internally, to make sure they have the goods. They have what it takes. So that deference isn't broad, it's narrow. There's only certain people we're going to give that seat to. So that's number 1, that deference to authority. They might be the people who unlock our specialness, because we have that need for affirmation, and we are bold. And so it is not easy to be bold, and there's lots of risks in being bold. And there's only a few people we will let in to guide us on that way. And in that job that they have, there is a requirement for assurances, not phony assurances, but to instill confidence and to work through our insecurity with us. Because as you guys know, we are always on the teeter-totter of insecurity, I am nothing, and confidence, I am everything. They will look at the underdeveloped parts, the shadowy stuff, and help us assimilate the negative and positive together and carry our psychic weight. This could be direct, this could be indirect. Usually good mentors know how to facilitate both environments that have a direct feedback and then also indirect feedback. But ultimately what they're helping us do, especially as fours, is be responsive, not reactive. That they already know we feel bad for being ourselves. And that's going to come up quite a bit. And in that vulnerability, we might be very reactive. But how can they show us how to be responsive? It's a beautiful thing. So in our pursuit of mentorship, remember this, and this is core. Deep calls to deep. And that other, wisdom, as iron sharpens iron, so does one person sharpen another. There is something probably pretty instinctual about us that knows when we find something good. And then it's hopefully that they see us as having the possibility of being deep also and work with us. So we must be principled there and use our spiritual cognition, that recognition to see what is good. I bring up Rilke. This is a very cool book. You Must Change Your Life. Oh my gosh, does that speak to the fours? This is like the fouriest of the four books. Rilke is a four, in my opinion. I'll just keep on holding this up. And he knew that Rodin, who was a sculptor, had from afar things that he liked. And so he pursued Rodin. He wrote to Rodin and said, hey, I'd like to sit at your feet. Now this was in the turn of the century, around 1900. And Rodin approved and said, hey, come stay with me. We'll work things out. Now, Rodin was not a four. My sense is he was a one. Ones are great at having form, discipline, order. And so what Rodin said initially and almost immediately to Rilke was a poet. He said to Rilke, don't write about love. It's overplayed. I mean, think about some of the music out there that's just every song is a fucking love song. Like, get over it. Be mature about what's inside of you and write about the things that are everyday. I think Seinfeld does this great, right? As a comedian. He talks about the everyday, mundane stuff and gives us this other angle that we probably were already thinking anyway. We just needed somebody to say it in a certain way. So Rodin's first chore for Rilke was go to the zoo and regard the animals, he said. Now, what does this mean? Focus on the everyday things that hardly anyone sees, that can so unexpectedly become big and beyond measure, he said, if we see it well. And so he told Rilke to in-see, to see into that animal, whatever it be, and try to have sympathy and compassion and empathy for that animal. Get inside them. That perception leads towards some emotional connection for people. And so respect that there is a part of people who want to connect to themselves through the everyday. So he goes to the zoo over and over again, and he settles on this panther. And it became his most famous poem, The Panther. Just how the panther would prowl, how the panther is in this cage. And there was an empathy towards that panther, as if he was the panther, that he felt the pain of the panther. Now, Rilke said, everything is gestation and then bringing forth. Everything is gestation, nurturing, developing, and then bringing forth. And this is what the mentor helps us do. Gestate, incubate, take our time, move slowly, don't move too quickly. compromise in the right situations, not to make it the right situation. The mentor knows that our motives are all over the place, and the mentor does not judge for that. The mentor helps us trim the fat. So that's number one, mentorship. We defer to authorities, and that is okay when they are the right authorities. Let's move to the next one. All right, number two, vicarious mentorship. These are the mentors in abstention. They are not here for us, at least not in usually a physical sense. But they are the mentors we go to time and time again. Those mentors that we've just gravitated towards, but we might not even call them mentors. Might call them our favorite authors or our favorite musicians, our favorite comedians, our favorite psychologists in my case, favorite writers. Who are they? Start thinking about them in your own life right now. I like to keep 5 on tap at all times. Now, I just mentioned Rilke and I mentioned Rodin. Now, Rodin was a mentor that was touchable. Rilke could talk to him, could sit with him, ask him, hey, how did you sculpt this? What was your mindset? What was your process? And Rodin could critique Rilke's process. But Rilke also had a vicarious mentor, Cézanne, the artist. And he would go to the museum over and over again to look at Cézanne's work. And he wrote letters to his friends, his wife, about Cézanne's work. Again, it's that in-scene, that trying to get in Cézanne's head. Learn from Cézanne. Some have said that if Rodin taught Rilke form, that Enneagram 1 type form and order, then Cézanne showed him how to fill it with color. And so one of the things we're doing with vicarious mentorship is looking at how we could fill our life and our work and our relationships with color. We should probably be looking for, as fours, I'm going to say this with boldness, people who are instant, because we're so hard to please. We have to look towards those cats who are like, whoa, they've got it. To be around that kind of greatness, that thing that just like feels right pretty quickly, and characters that are certain. It doesn't mean that they're not torn or they don't have insecurity, but they're certain about their craft. So I'm going to read you 5 of my favorite vicarious mentors. Now, I always like to have 5 on rotation. These people who I'm about to read from have remained for a very long period of time as the primary 5. I mean, I like to pick from different fields, get some different flavor into what I'm ingesting throughout the week. And those quotes and those philosophical thoughts, the psychology that just seem right to me, that I can go to when I'm feeling a bit insecure, when things aren't happening in my career that I want to happen, when the project just doesn't go in the right direction. I can look towards these folks who have really grinded away at their work and done it over a long period of time with a certain amount of success that I appreciate, and I surrender to them at some level. I respect and regard them. They are not perfect. They have very flawed lives. They've done crazy shit and they've messed up. Or they have a certain type of madness that is just on the borderline of, well, who knows what. But here they are, in no order. Jerry Seinfeld's number 1. He says, comedy always begins with irritation. Now, if you are a sexual 4, you feel this right away. We have tons of irritation. We're irritated by so much. Now, I love Jerry because he just accepts it. My sense is he's in the gut part of the Enneagram, an 8 or a 1, and that there is a lot of hostility, but he owns it. There's not a lot of apology for it. And he's disciplined in using that irritation to make his work great, to find out what irritates him in the world, and then start getting to the work of writing about it and then delivering that comedy. And there's a realism that he has about his own process and his own personality. It's not a lot of apology for it. So Jerry's number one. Number two, Carl Jung, the famous psychologist who was at one point mentored by Sigmund Freud, but then had to graduate Sigmund Freud. Didn't believe that Sigmund Freud was as useful to him anymore, and they were at cross purposes. And Jung says, knowing our own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. One doesn't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This is Enneagram stuff right off the bat. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Look at your shadow. Now, he's someone who conceptualized the shadow. We still use that in Enneagram talk. He saw the shadow as that thing behind us that we don't know about. Other people see it. God or the universe sees it, but we don't see it. Or the stuff we see, but we're hiding from people, and sometimes hiding from ourselves. We're trying to push it away. And he thought that if we integrate that, we become more whole. We become more known to ourselves and we become more known to other people. And so we must look at our shadow. Now, for me, in my therapy, one of the ways that I vicariously experience the shadow is by trying to get in the heads and the hearts of my clients, but often sometimes, and follow me here, inside the heads of their abusers or the people who have manipulated them or hurt them. So it might be that I have to get in the head of the rapist or the adulterer or the abuser, the physical abuser, the bully, to actually help the client. That I can be both the bully and the bullied, the victim and the victimizer. That's inside all of us. There's parts of your dreams that you probably have in which you are both ugly, manipulative, and dark, and parts of your dreams when you are sleeping, which you are light and perfected and beautiful, because they're both parts of you. So we must look into that, and Jung is telling us in that we have to know the darkness, and then we can know the darkness of others. All right, Rilke. I've been overusing him today, and I'm going to continue using him probably. I have behind me so many years that are lost, or at least have almost eluded me, that I am now ruthlessly living towards a certain entrepreneurship. I relate to this, and maybe you fours relate to this. Often we feel like late bloomers because there's so much emotional turbulence inside of us, especially in our teens and our 20s, and it starts to dim down in our 30s. And sometimes at 40, we are ready to go. As Carl Jung says, life begins at 40, everything else was research. I feel this is somewhat true, and that 40s for me, the emotions have settled. They're not as loud, they're not as occupying or distracting. But there is that part of me that feels like, gosh, I have behind me so many years that are lost because my emotions were preoccupations, and now I am moving towards a certain type of entrepreneurship, of drive, of focus, of macro level thinking. And so maybe that one will help you guys. But Rilke has always been a guy. Next is Steinbeck, John Steinbeck, the American writer. I think, and he's writing to a friend here, and Steinbeck's 29. This is in his letters that I found a book of his letters, and I think the world angers you because it pays you so little attention. Fine artistic things seem always to be in the face of difficulties. And the rocky soil which seems to give the finest flower is contempt. Don't fool yourself. Appreciation doesn't make artists. It ruins them. A man's best work is done when he is fighting to make himself heard, not when swooning audiences wait for his paragraphs. Fours, how much do we want an audience and a witness? We want to witness to our pain and to our life and to our successes. Come see it, love it, appreciate me. And Steinbeck's saying, nope, the audience isn't important. What's in here is important. Find this stuff, and then you'll find your audience. I communicated this in the piece about, or the episode about confidence, that we have to lose our audience to gain an audience. So us fours are often so tempted by the audience. Where are they? Are they watching us? What do they think? And he's saying, lose it, and you'll gain it. Last one. My man Bruce Springsteen. I like his words and his wisdom even more than his music. He's not probably on my top 10 of favorite bands or favorite singers. Maybe he's right on that borderline. But I've seen his shows more than 20 times, and I like the way he communicates. It's short and pithy. And he says, your job is putting somebody else's clothes on. The act of making music and making art, a very large part of it, is an act of imagination. It's also a tremendous act of empathy. That's the work. When we are doing good work, we are empathizing with others and knowing what they need, knowing what they're missing. We have a cool discernment on how to give that out. It might take years to develop, like Rilke's talking about, where we might come into our own in our 40s. But it's also a cool discernment to pick the right characters in your life. So they're probably already there. You probably already have them. You have that fault-finding syndrome. You will find fault in people. And if these certain folks have risen to the top, then use them. And maybe pick 5, 3, 10, and just ruminate on their message, on quotes, on their art. Try to get inside it a bit, and it can take you to the next level in your own work. So let's move on. Number 3 is do what is yours to do in the way only you can do it. I have done what is mine to do. May Christ teach you what is yours. This is from Francis of Assisi. The idea is that we can overdose on options. As fours, we want it all. We want a little of this, we want a little of that, we want what you have, and we want what we have, and we want what you have. We also want what we already have again, and we want what you have. And we see all the options. I think one of the worst things a parent could do is tell a child, you can do anything. Now, it's a great idea, but ultimately, a parent is there to help narrow just a bit, not meddle, but narrow a bit. See some of the gifts that that child has and help them maximize those, utilize those. So as an adult, their work can be purposeful because they have an understanding of who they are. What is selected for you to do? There's going to be 1,000 things competing for your attention. And we are hyper receptive to those things. But all great spirituality is about letting go. Just letting go of the thousands of other options and picking the few things that we do well. Carl Jung said, do not compare, do not measure. No other way is like yours. All other ways deceived and tempt you. You must fulfill the way that is yours. And what he's saying is defend yourself against stimuli. The onslaught of stimuli that comes at you every day, all the options, all the great gifted folks out there who do things well that you want to do those things too. Defend yourself against that because they will tempt you. They will deceive you. They are not yours. And it takes years and years to years to know what is yours. I've said this before. Me defining what my purpose was, which is to help people know things about themselves they didn't even know they wanted to know. It's just that one sentence. The how and the what do not matter. I don't have to necessarily be a therapist or be on YouTube or a teacher or a writer. I could be any of those things and still fulfill that purpose. Then it's figuring out what the how and the what are. So we must trust our trajectory and trust the mirrors, the folks that are helping us see what is ours, what is our gifts. Goethe said, "I respect the man who knows distinctly what he wishes. The greater part of all mischief in the world arises from the fact that men do not sufficiently understand their own aims." I'm sorry about the pronouns. I'm reading a lot of old school cats who just talked about men. But people, they, them, he, she. What is yours? What's distinctly yours? What are your wishes, your desires? And then how do you narrow down? How do you limit your field so that you're able to spend a lot of time getting good at those things? That's the question to you. Appreciate yourself, the things that are inside of you that maybe haven't been said out loud. Maybe you need to say them out loud and write them down and find that one sentence that defines why you are here, not how or what you do. Let's go on to number 4. Number 4 is, simply put, collaborators. We gotta look for them. Now we have our resistances here just as our subtypes define us a bit. Remember, our subtypes are our instincts. They are the way we protect ourselves and feel safe in the world. They often developed early on in life. And in accordance with how our house was, we found a way to survive. Even if it was a great house, we still use these instincts to survive in the world. And there is the sexual, the social, and the self-preserving. Now the sexual type is a pair. So when they are collaborating, they have to find those folks who can tolerate them, who can be good complements, because the sexual type is pretty intense. That one-to-one interaction is pretty intense. And they can buzz at a frequency that's a little higher than others. So they have to find those folks who can handle that. Appropriately push back, appropriately apply resistance, but not take away that intensity. Only help shape it and harness it. So for you social types who is more worried about the group, about the herd, well, this instinct will help you gravitate towards a group who can pull you in, you can find your place in. You maybe lead, you maybe follow, but you know your place in that group and they appreciate you because you want to be appreciated. The self-preservers, they do a lot of their work, that individual creativity, they do alone. And so I challenge you self-preservers to reach out, to utilize your mentors, your vicarious mentors, and in your collaborations, which maybe be at a distance, which is okay, that you find that support that both, I think, challenges your instinct to self-preserve, but also enables it to be used in the best way possible. Now, as 4s, we have some anger. The sexual 4s have a lot of anger. Social 4s have a lot of shame. The self-preservers have a lot of resistance. So we want to protect ourselves. We want to protect ourselves from having too much shame, of having to be too resistant, of having to be too angry at people. So who can provide us with that resistance that's appropriate? Because being with a 4 is not neutral. People will react. Now, I think the beautiful part here is that we can, if we really get in touch with ourselves, we can realize that these moments are great moments to actually just settle back and not get too overprotective and allow people to enter in, to not have our past, our history, contaminate a good collaboration that can move forward. And so while we try to protect ourselves and our image, these folks will help us actually see who our true self is. And there might be a little bit of a testing and hazing on our part to see if they have the goods, and on their part too. Seinfeld said the human condition comes down to one thing: confrontation. Now, whether you believe that or not, it is a top priority for us to confront our issues and confront folks and see if they could handle that kind of confrontation. This is the natural resistance that's out there that helps actually good work happen. Good projects come to play, good businesses be built. Let's do Rilke. One more last Rilke, please. Let me pump out another Rilke quote. If one didn't know, and know more and more, that without resistance, there would be no movement, and none of the rhythmic circulation of all the things we encounter, this would be very confusing and upsetting. That rhythmic circulation of relationship. If we don't have it, the world's confusing, it's upsetting. This is the good movement that we can have together. And our true face will be revealed in it if we allow those people, those institutions, if they are the right place and they aren't toxic, to just push against us. So, fuck it, I'm going to throw out one more Rilke because I always do at the end. He says, everything is yet to be done. Everything. Let that be a sign of hope for you, that there is more to come in your life. That you can use, hopefully, some of this information to get better work out of yourself, be more productive, and be more purposeful. If you want to subscribe, please do. Hit that little bell, and I will keep on pumping out more information, more content for you, because it is fun for me also. So, have a great day. See you soon. Later.